I was a very effeminate child, very different from the other boys in my class or my neighborhood. The other kids in my school, though, or in my neighborhood, my building, weren't exactly that welcoming. There was no term that was about your sexual orientation. It was like the word pansy, which is a word used very predominantly in the 80s, and it kind of got stuck in your head. You know, when I was a child, I was raised by very progressive parents. When I say progressive at that point, it means something else, because I think my father was largely unaware of things. He was a very simple Punjabi man with very strong middle-class values. And my mother was very different from him, much like the Bengali family in the film. My father was simple, my mother was this convent-educated who spoke in English words I didn't understand. But they gave me the freedom to be the way I was. I was a very effeminate child, very different from the other boys in my class or my neighborhood. Everyone else grew up on pop culture of Western music, Madonna and George Michael and Michael Jackson, at the time in the late 70s and early 80s. I grew up on Lata Mangeshkar, on Asha Bhosle, Mohammad Rafi, Kishore Kumar. I sang those songs loudly in a tone-deaf voice. I danced to those songs in my room, and my father would think it was great. And he would actually ask me to dance in front of his friends because he thought I was expressing myself. He didn't realize that I was actually being effeminate or being unusual or different from the other boys. The other kids in my school, though, or in my neighborhood, my building, weren't exactly that welcoming to this kind of personality. And that's where the term, in those days, there was no term that was about your sexual orientation. It was like the word pansy, which is a word used very predominantly in the 80s. And it kind of got stuck in your head. And then I was overweight. So that was actually, for me, a lesser of... So I seeked refuge in food because I couldn't handle this term that was thrown at me when I went out, when I met boys and girls from other schools and inter-school competitions, inter-house competitions. It was traumatizing, you know. So I think this film is a lot of me rebelling, not just...
All these years later.
Not only my childhood, but also there's a latent anger that you build with what had happened in the last couple of years. And then you have a way of just saying, like, you know what, nothing else matters but your individuality and what you stand for and what you were raised to be. And I was raised to be this kind of person by my parents, and I don't want to apologize for it to anyone.